And get started. We have Steve Lopresti
Very good.
and his associate Doug. I didn't get Doug's last name.
Doug Tracy, I'm the service manager for the company.
And they're from Custom Storm Shutters Direct, a local company.
Huh?
And they manufacture their own shutters, if I remember correctly.
Very well.
So we'll turn it over to Steve and Doug for kind of a presentation and then open for questions.
Thanks, Doris. Thanks for inviting us out, and for this meeting, I'm going to just do a little education process here. It's really not for sales, but it's for a lot of people have shutters here. There's over 300 shutters on both buildings, so there's a lot of variations of shutters that are here. Some older, some newer. So I'd like to go over kind of what you have on the building first, and then we'll go into a process of under restoration, what is needed to happen, because we have done this on other towers buildings before with other restoration companies. And we were looking to just give Doris some information and all you guys information on what's needed to happen. So first of all, there's some shutters that are on the building are called an end cap system. An end cap system is the ends of the covers are hard cast aluminum end cap. And then there's other shutters on the building, and there's basically just two types. The other shutter on the building is called a bracket system. The cover is separate, no cast aluminum end caps. The bracket and the roll is on the wall, mounted to the wall. Now, and that separates a shutter from the end caps. So I don't know if I'm explaining that good enough, but I'll show you what an end cap is. This is on one side, this cap, and one's on the other side. And in the middle, there's a tube that the shutter rolls up on with a motor or a gear, depending on the size of it. So you got this on both sides. You have this reel that's in the middle. It can be either steel, the older ones are steel. If you ever rolled up your shutter and you get rust on the floor, it's like, oh, this is where it's coming from. So the new stuff is now all aluminum, and you don't have that rusting reel. After a while, the end cap system, and I'm not here to put down anything or do any, throw anybody under the bus, other than giving everybody facts, and everybody can make up their mind per the facts. That's how I like to make decisions in my life. So end caps, after a while, beach side turn into this. So you have an end cap that used to look like this. Beach side, 5 to 10 years will look like this. So this is not my recommendation to be used on the beach, although there's a number of them in here that have that system. Really like to stay away from that and this. Most companies are using the aluminum reels, and there are a lot of companies that are using the bracket system because it's so much easier to install, quick, bam, 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 you're done, you're in and out. But longevity wise, really bad, really, really bad. Storm bars, you have posts in that hold the shutter from blowing in or out. They're a necessary thing to have on some shutters. Shutters that don't have posts should be an end retention shutter. You can have an end retention shutter with an end cap system. Most all shutters now are end retention barless, no bars. So there's no penetration into the floors, which is super nice. No penetration in the floor. That's where you get water problems in the decks. So an end retention shutter has clips on the side. They have these retention clips. They're aluminum. It's aircraft aluminum. It has to flex without cracking. So that's why the shutters aren't very cheap. So you have an end retention system, and you have an end retention track. So the track is held in. Yeah. Okay. So it's locked in the end by a end retention clip. So this is how it is. Track, you got the shutter that's locked in the sides. You got another track on the other side that rolls up, either into an end cap or a bracket system. Bracket system would be a bracket that's mounted to the wall. It holds the tube, and then you have a cover over it. And most of the time, I recommend stuccoing everything that you can see without doing the curtain. Of course, you can't stucco the curtain. So covering the tracks, the hood, that way when the building needs to be painted again or waterproofed, everything gets painted again. They last a long time. You don't have this pitting. So, yeah. The other thing I'd like to bring up is fasteners. When you think about, oh, I want stainless steel fasteners. Stainless steel is great, with the exception of the more stainless it has in it, the softer the fastener. So they add nickel into carbon to get it stainless. So the higher the grade of stainless, the softer the screw. If you're an engineer, you know, you put your screw in the wall. If it's too soft, it's not going to be able to hold the track to the wall, right? Which is devastating. So that's not where you want to go. There is a point of a 410 grade stainless, which is stainless. The screw will surface rust, but it won't corrode. And we've all seen screws just degrade, corrode, and there's no more head on them. It's not a good thing. So 410 is recommended in the tracks, holding the brackets up. That's a standard screw that should be used beachside, not always done. And then the other thing that I think is real important is to keep the same metals. So you know, if you have an aluminum product and you use a stainless steel screw because you requested, I want stainless, not always the best way to go. So what we do is we use rivets, and it's aluminum rivets. So you have an aluminum cover held down with aluminum rivets. Therefore, you have no degradation of the aluminum. Is softer. It's always a softer metal that's going to eat. That's why you see end cap systems, the cover that goes around here on the very ends rots first, because you have an end cap that's cast aluminum, you have an aluminum cover. It's two different metals. This is cast, the other one's aluminum. It'll rot right here. And you'll first, you know, that's a first sign of an end cap system going, oh, I know that's an end cap system. The end of it is already rotting. Another reason I don't do this kind of stuff. So that's the overall view of what you have in this building. Me and Doug came down here last Wednesday, and we did, and thanks to you, sent me a sheet that you guys went and did a preliminary view of, and I really just took that sheet and expanded on it and put in what I saw from the beach and from the grounds. And it's not real easy to do it, but I've been doing this for 40 years. You've been doing it for
20 plus.
20 plus years. So we had binoculars. We weren't spying anybody, just looking at shutters. And we identified, and we could be off a little bit. Maybe the number of shutters might be a little off, but we did a pretty good job. If there's an issue here or there, I would expect that to happen. So we identified the end cap shutters. We identified the ones with storm bars that have to be, you know, mounted in the floor. We identified what did I say? End caps, storm bars, and condition, and code and non-code. Code shutters versus non-code shutters. Let me just touch on that a little bit, if I can. So these windows, even in here, probably not code, but they're there, right? You know, they're not impact, but it doesn't mean you have to replace them. So code changes every so often. Beach side, if you're within here 1 mile of the beach, of the mean tide line, 1 mile in, is called the windborne debris region. So you have to have shutters or impact glass. or a certain type of roofing, there's other things that go along with what you need to do beachside that people don't need to do on the island or on the mainland. So with shutters, it's the same thing. Just because your shutter might not meet the current building code doesn't mean you have to trash it. You wouldn't trash the window, maybe you'd wait, maybe you'd fix it. You know, there's other things you don't have to. If it's working well, I would say, you know, try to keep it. Why throw it away? It'll work even with storm bars. I mean, it's not the end of the world where you got to say everything with storm bars is going to go. We have to get with the engineer, come up with a fastening system that he's comfortable with. We did that on other buildings that will stop the balcony from eroding after a while, you know. So you have that issue. It's better not to mount it in the floor, but if you have purlins, they allow us to do it, and we can do that.
Can I, based on
Sure.
your code, if that shutter has to come down during restoration, can it go back up if it doesn't meet code?
No.
Okay.
So that's a great question. So if the shutter has to come completely down, then you have to replace it. But there's a line there where, you know, maybe a track has to come off, but not the whole shutter. They can fix that wall on the right side of the shutter behind that track, and that can go back in. Shutter doesn't need to come down. Therefore, we can make it work again. So that's a great question with there being issues. And I tell you, I'm going to beat up again a little bit on end cap systems, because what happens in an end cap system, if we have to take one down and it's not code and you got to put it up again, it's very, very difficult to remove an end cap system. Let's just say the right track has to come down and it's an end cap system. This stab, we call it a stab, goes in the track like this. And we have two different metals here. We have cast aluminum, we have aluminum. What happens inside this track when this is in here is it rots, it swells. I've seen it crack the tracks. You cannot, without breaking it, separate these two. Therefore, if you have an end cap system shutter and something has to come down, it's highly likely that the whole thing has to come down.
Absolutely.
Highly likely. And if it's not the code, we're not gonna be able to put it back up. With a bracket system, the tracks are separate from the brackets. You can easily remove a track, and the bracket and the cover and the hood, the roll all stays up there. So huge difference between the two in that respect of needing repair or taking down and put it back up. There's a lot of shutters in here that don't meet, you know, most all shutters in here that have the bars are not going to be code. They're just not. They're, you know, I mean, we can do shutters really wide and still use bars, but there's no opening in this building that will require us to use storm bars for the width, you know, with this end retention system that's been out for, I would say 18 years now, 16, 18 years. It's been out. It's really nice.
How can we discriminate which unit we have? I mean, what kind of, we have, whether it's an end cap or the other, how do we?
How do we look at that? Well, one thing, you can look at is the rotting cover. So on each end of the shutter, your cover that's covering this is going to be degraded here. On the other shutters, it's not, because they're the same metal. So you won't have a degradation of the aluminum, and it'll be the cover that's rotted.
So if you have a unit that was put in 5 years ago, let's say, okay, how am I going to know the difference which you mean, because rot hasn't set in yet?
So me and Doug went around Wednesday and we glassed everything, and we came up with a list. So I can hand you these sheets. I printed them out. I have it. I can email it to you, and you can blast it out to whoever you want. We'll give you an idea of what your shutters are. And there's building 8 and 9 here. If you want to, anybody with Shutter, want to come up and take a look, and you have a question that, on this, that you want to ask me, I'm here to do that too. So what building are you in?
7601.
76 here. So anybody's welcome to take these, and there's 8 and 9. Yeah, that's building 9.
I'm in building what?
That's 8.
Building 8.
So I did the best I could to kind of go over what we needed to.
So far, so good.
Okay.
15 minutes in.
Yeah, no, you spelled it out pretty simply.
I know what we're
No more.
Bob,
Excuse me.
I'll talk to you.
Sure.
I'm on one of these.
You don't get it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. I've
Yeah.
got I put in shutters around my place 5 years ago, about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And the two on the beach side were there prehistorically. They were there for a long time. So I know those gotta go. How do I know about the remainder of them? With this code here, okay, there's no discrimination between which are the good ones and which are the bad ones.
What unit are you in?
7601.
76.
So the two on the beach side, I know, or I've been told are not up to code when I had them repaired. One's on the north side and the west side. My question is, yeah.
Would you say 76?
7601.
7601. So that's ground floor.
No.
No, it's 01 right here.
Sixth
I
floor.
got it.
Sixth
Oh,
floor.
sixth floor,
north.
yeah. This, I tell you, whoever numbered these buildings, and that's been my biggest challenge, making sure that I don't mess them up. Because, okay, so I have what I made notes here. Some of these are in poor condition, some of these aren't good. You have one end cap system shutter facing east. And let me get my pictures and I can blow that up. And
They're terrible.
yeah,
That had a new awning put on it, but the thing itself is not good.
so that was the first building we went to, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so it's right there. So is one of these, it looks like the master bedroom door is in pretty bad shape. Would that be right from my picture?
They're both bad.
They're
One
both
just
bad?
has a new cover on it because it fell apart.
That's the bigger one?
That's the one off the living room, yeah.
Yeah.
So that had a new cover put on it because it was so far on.
Maybe by me glassing it, that's why it looked better than the other one, but they're probably both bad. That would be a common mistake I could make, because you replace the cover. One of them I could tell was an end cap system. The other one's kind of set in. I had a little harder time with it. I identified the one, which would have been the master bedroom, but your other one. So your question would be what?
But the rest of them.
But the rest of them look fine.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have storm bars on them. The rest of them on the would be on the north side. Look perfectly fine.
That just depends on whether or not what they find underneath.
I'll tell you, in my experience doing restoration, it's rare, it happens once in a while, but it's way more rare to have to take a shutter down than you think. All right, so it's more rare that they find bad enough places where you have to take the whole shutter down. We did Tower 6 years ago, and I think we had to take 1 or 2 shutters down, and that building was pretty disrepair as far as stuff goes.
And I think even our engineer has said that he's not too worried about, in his initial report, it wasn't he didn't have any places marked. It's more of the center posts and the window sills.
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
So what's the difference between impact sliders and a shutter system?
Say it again.
What's the difference between having impact sliders that are hurricane level
Rated.
5, whatever,
Mhm.
and a shutter system?
The difference, well, the impact glass is what gives you the impact, and the shutter is made to keep the impact away from the door.
Okay.
So you have in the code, there's two different things. You have design pressures that you have to meet according to the area of the building and where your address is at. So the corners of the building have higher pressures. They're called end units and then the other ones are internal, which is, anything 6 feet or more in these buildings, basically, or as an internal unit, the pressures are lower. Think of it like the mountains. You have so much wind blowing through the mountains, as it compresses, it speeds up. It's called the Venturi. So as that wind speeds up between the buildings, it wants to suck things off. So as it wraps around the building, the shutter or the door, whatever it is, wants to come off the building. The negative pressure, which pulls things off building, is actually higher than positive, which pushes things in, just to give you. So you have a positive pressure, pushes on the building. When you have wind coming directly east and it's pushing on your door, that is actually lower than the wind speed coming around the corner of a building and trying to suck things off. That's a higher pressure. So fastening something on the corners of the building are higher. So I'm getting maybe a little off track. So that's the wind. And then impact is you can put a shutter will be impact and a non-impact door in. So you have to do one or the other. So if you put a door in, you have no shutter, and you don't want a shutter, you do impact glass. If you choose, you know what, I want my shutter to be the impact, and I don't want an impact door, you don't have to get an impact door.
And what's
So,
the
but you have to
difference in
keep
price
this.
between a shutter system like you're talking about and an impact slider door?
What is a price difference?
I think we're getting a little bit too
Yeah.
off track. We're gonna get window pricing. So our
For
contract,
impact windows?
yes,
Sure.
because we can't rely that someone is going eventually to put an impact shutter up over non-impact glass.
Very true. You have to pull the permit at the same time.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna do non-impact glass, you have to make the decision
I was
right
just
then.
asking Because I just ordered impact sliders and they're really, really expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wondering, like, price wise.
They're cheaper than doors. Shutters are cheaper than doors. Absolutely,
Oh,
absolutely.
that's what I want.
So the biggest thing I see with a shutter and its value is keeping water out. He's been called so many times on people that'll get impact glass, impact doors. They get a storm, no matter how big the sill is, how beefy the door is, it moves. And you have enough water pushing against that door and the wind, and it won't let it off, you will get leaks. I've had people spend $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on doors. They call me up and they're so mad, like, they told me I didn't need shutters. And you have to go in there and put shutters in. I mean, this is reality. All up and down the beach, it's reality. Windows a little less. So that's most of our work is on doors where they leak. The other issue I wanted to bring up is the purlins on the windows on the end units. The purlins being those bars. You don't need bars anymore, but the bars that are connected to the sills pretty much are gonna have to come down, right? I mean, those sills are pretty, when you drill a hole in the top of a sill, I don't care how much caulking you put in there, 25-year this or that, doesn't matter. Eventually the sun just eats away that caulking and you'll get water in that sill, and that sill's precast and there's rebar in it. And you'll get chunks of concrete falling off because of that storm bar. So It's not a good idea even the shutter setting on the sill isn't really the best idea either. You're trying to keep water out. The way we design our shutters is on all the windows, the shutter encapsulates the sill. If the shutter's setting on top of the sill with that rough stucco, you still have water blowing in underneath it. You're buying an expensive shutter to keep water out and wind. So, better to not touch the sill, go below the sill, have a shutter installed below the sill. That's my recommendation. So,
Could you expand on the bars? All my bars apparently are gonna have to come down
okay,
because we're taking the tile up,
yeah,
so we finish on the floor.
right.
What impact does that have on the overall scope of the shutters that are up? Whether they're code or not code.
So the bars have to be in there during a storm. If we take the bars out, you should not run that shutter down during a storm, right? I'm gonna put in a recommendation, and I know it might not be pleasant to everybody, that if you do building restoration, that I go through the building or somebody goes through the building, it doesn't have to be me, it could be another company. And you make the shutters inoperable. And I'll tell you why. They're working on the balconies. If that shutter's down, they can't get in there. Somebody's gonna be getting a phone call to say, we're working on this stack, the shutter's down, person forgot, they left, now you can't get the shutter up. They're working on the floor. The other thing is, say the shutter is down and something happens and they can't get it back up. The railings are off. Somebody's gonna have to come. Somebody's gonna have to get on the scaffolding. We're gonna have to go up there, harness off, fix the shutter, get it up. Even though the other restoration companies that I've worked with, and I don't know that you've chosen for sure which restoration company you have. I don't think I've worked with them before. But in my thought, having guys on a stack and having shutters down and not be able to get them up is an issue. But that's up to you guys to decide whether you want to make them inoperable or operable and run the risk of having a problem that you can't go through the unit to get to. You got to go up through the side of the building. So to your question,
When the support bars are attached to the floor
mhm,
on the patio, they
Yeah.
have to come down.
yes,
Support
those-
bar,
the
bar.
purlins, we call them purlins, they trap the shutter in between. The shutter comes down usually between two of them. I've seen where there's only one, but
So there's two.
there's two. They need to come out to get any floor work done, and then they'll have to go back in after everything's done.
After everything's done, can they re-drill again?
With the engineering's blessing and procedure, yeah, we've done that. Now, do I, it's my new floor. Would I, think about maybe it's time to do something else, get a new shutter, whatever. Maybe that's the time to think about that. It depends on your quality of your existing shutter and the person that owns the unit. You have to make that decision for yourself. I'm letting you know information like it doesn't have to come down. If there's no damage to the wall around the shutter and you have an end cap system and there's some end cap systems in here, not too many, that are still in good shape. They're in good shape. And I made note of that in these forms. So, information that I arm you with makes good decisions. And that's what I'm trying to do. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
And Steve,
Yeah.
just to clarify, new shutters that meet code
Mhm.
do not have this purlin system.
That's correct. Well, in your building,
Right,
that is
the
correct.
size we need.
Yes, it's really rare when I do them off-site that you get a shutter so wide that I need these bars. It's almost, they're in the engineering, but you don't have them in the building. Is there shutters out there that you could possibly buy that have storm bars? Yeah, so you got to do your due diligence when you're buying shutters. You got to look at multiple things. But I wouldn't buy a shutter with storm bars anymore. I mean, that's just not necessary. And they take up room on your balcony anyways. Why would you want to do that, right? So
Spoils the view.
it does spoil the view.
Mhm.
But back in the day, that's what was
20
you
years
know,
ago.
yeah, that was the engineering and, you know, it was better to have a bar that some of them, they were made to take in and out, which were a pain. But the water in the units was a bad thing too. So you're stopping that, you know, even the old ones stopped that a lot. So, I recommend that somebody comes in and you dismantle, take the storm bars out. You make the shutters inoperable up. I give you you know, if there's something that doesn't work, we can fix it then or fix it later or take them down as you go. If you decide not to want the shutters, or give you our opinion on what it would take to, you know, make them operable again, or just what kind of shape they're in, other than glassing them from the beach is how we did that. So am I missing anything?
No. Basically, I mean, that's the reason for no post basically is because of the end retention system. The end retention system now has clips on each side that run up and down the side of the track, which doesn't require the storm bars anymore. Because, you know, the old storm bars on the inside would catch the shutter for an impact. We're keeping it getting pushed into the opening, and more on houses, the outside storm bar would keep it from getting sucked out. So the new system, or the system that's in place now, just eliminates the storm bars in general.
What's the price of the shutters?
The price of the shutters? So off the top of my head, what opening are you looking at? I mean, you know, I can give you a general thought of what a price of a shutter is. I mean, is there a square foot price? No. So do you have a particular,
Approximately,
what
approximately what they would cost.
are you on the master bedroom door? Are you in the balcony? Where are you talking?
On the balcony.
On a balcony. So it's in the $4,000 range, somewhere right in there, 40, 45, I want to say,
Okay.
you know, to get a new shutter in
Just
that.
wanted to get an average
Yeah.
price.
You
That's-
know, yeah. Well, I was just gonna say with our shutters, you know, in this building, especially, you know, we stucco everything in the hoods and everything.
Yeah.
It's, you know, it's quite different than a lot of the shutters in here.
You have to, you have to pull a permit, and I wouldn't even do a shutter in here without stuccoing. I mean, the price that I give in these tower buildings are with stucco. I don't even give an option. You know, if it's your house, I'll give a person an option for that. So,
Yes. Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions, or did I miss something that you're worried about, you know, me or somebody coming in here initially doing a you know, a walkthrough? You know, you can call us and we can get somebody out there if you really want to go deeper into what needs to come down or what your needs are. We can help with that too.
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yeah.
On the permitting side of it.
Mhm.
A lot of these shutters are electric.
Yep.
And as I remember, we pulled permits when we put ours in and we had an inspection and so on. If you work on them and take them down, then how is that permitted handled? Who does that? And
So if you want to put them back up.
Yeah.
Okay, so you take them down. If they have to come all the way down, it would be rare. So if you don't have to take them all the way down, you can put them back up.
so you still have to cut the power on.
Yeah, you just take the wires off the switch.
Okay, there's a box outside of there.
Oh, yeah, up in the hood there is.
Up in the
Yep. Yeah, you just disconnect the wires.
So that's
Yeah,
not
but I can speak to that because they just took down 3 of mine, the 2 sliders on the beach side and my lanai one, and they disconnected all the wires.
Yeah.
Until the new ones come in and the new
Right.
ones go up, so everything's.
Just cap the hot
they just
side
cap
off.
the- Yeah, they cap
Right.
the wires.
So the
Right.
permitting for electrical isn't an issue then?
No,
Okay.
no, it's already there. There's no,
New
there's,
one.
right, there's nothing new to permit. Right.
We've got a hand raised on the computer.
Okay.
Jim Skirka?
Yeah, hey, Steve, I have heard several times about code on shutters changing in 2018, meaning even if you had a shutter that was put up, let's say 2 years before that, 2016, that was still look pretty new. Some reason if it had to come down, you'd have to, the code has changed, you'd put a new one up. Is that correct? Is that 2018 date correct? That's the new code on shutters?
We had a new code come out in 2020 was the last code change that we had. So your question, if you had a shutter put up in 2018, is that still code? Is that your?
Or 16, at what point is it a compliant shutter that if my shutter has to come down, I need a new one? What is the year?
Well, there's a-
How do you determine that?
There's a sticker on the bottom of shutters and on windows up inside the headers that has a number. It's called a Florida product approval number. So that product approval number can be looked up online on the Florida Building Code approval website. The Department of Business and Professional Regulations that regulate everybody's license, my license, right down to doctors and lawyers and haircutters. So you go to that site and you plug in the number, the Florida product approval number, and it'll pull up that engineering for your particular shutter, and it'll say whether it's approved or disapproved. But that's not always, just because somebody let the approval lapse doesn't mean it doesn't meet code. It just means that they didn't pay the money to continue that to be a useful product anymore to them. Does that make sense? You there?
Yeah, I don't know.
What unit are you on? What
Well,
unit?
I shouldn't have that problem. I'm in 8707. You've done a couple shutters up there.
All right, yeah. So you want to identify the shutters you currently have of being code or not code?
Right.
Is that right? So
You have that information that's on that list. You don't have to do it now. If that's on the list you've done, that'd be great.
you're 7707?
8707, yeah.
He's on the south building.
And yeah,
Yeah. I can just tell you from the pictures, that
so are the two on the ocean, are the two on the doors in code?
so yes, what you're facing east is there's
Okay.
one on the south side of yours that does meet it and the other three don't.
Okay, got it. Understand that.
Yeah.
But the one on the ocean side, the one on the west side, those two on the doors, they meet code.
We're talking west side or east side? The ocean
Talking
side?
east side, ocean
East
side.
side.
Sorry.
Yes, they do.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right.
Those numbers that you mentioned, where are they located?
So,
Do I need to scaffold off the side of the building?
there's a sticker, should be a sticker on the bottom of your shutter or somewhere on the shutter that identifies that shutter. Every shutter that we put up, we have to put a sticker on it, and we're regulated. We actually have NAMI come in and they go through and they mic everything we have and make sure I'm in compliance with code and the material and the temper of it. And I have to put a sticker similar to this one on the bottom of this shutter right here, right? That identifies, there's a Florida product approval number on this sticker right here. And that sticker, you take that number and you go to the Florida Building Code website and you plug in that number and it'll tell you whether whether that engineering is still working or not, or approved or. Some people will let some shutters or other products, if they're not selling enough of it, they're not going to spend the money. It's so expensive to have a product approval and to keep up with it, that if they're not selling enough of it, they're going to let it go. It doesn't mean it's not in code, right? Does that make it? I mean, it's hard to explain that, but just because something lapses doesn't mean it isn't effective.
Neil Andrews is on that. That's his hand up.
Another question on the computer, Neil?
Yes, I just had a general question. Obviously, it depends on the size, material, and unit size and balcony size, but do we have a general idea yet of approximately what new shutters would cost? Because I'm strongly considering doing them, so.
Well, how far out are you to starting this project?
Probably fall,
fall.
early fall.
So
Late summer, early
I
fall.
think, in today's world, it's very, very difficult to project, prices out as we all can feel the pain of what we have to buy. So I can give you current pricing, subject to change. If
Yeah,
that,
that's fine.
and maybe I can give that to you and you can, you have everybody's email address and can get that out and I can give you current prices and then you can make up your mind and, I'm sure doors and windows are going up exponentially. Everything is, and the time you get them, it's, I can tell you one thing though, I would never sign a contract, as you guys probably know all too well, that the end of it, and I've seen these, the end of it is open-ended. In other words, you buy something for $100, but it isn't to be delivered for 6 months. And the $100, 6 months later, turns into $150. I would never personally sign a contract without it being closed in. In other words, if you're buying something, you want to be locked in on the price. So I would never do that. If you sign a contract, I always buy material in bulk, which means I have your material on site. And when we get ready to do it, it's there. It's locked in. That's a smart way to do business, but never sign a contract. I would never do that.
I'll also mention that before the restoration general contractor is on site, things can be done to your unit. Once they're here on site, no windows can be put in because your contractor is going to be in his way. No shutters put in. Shutters can be taken down as they identify what needs to come down. But, owners need to make a decision now if they're going to put new shutters on, take old ones down, because we can't have that cross of workers here and being in each other's way, right?
Does that include the sliders? I mean, they can access those
Inside.
through their condo. Okay.
That's
I think we need to talk
You gotta
about
be
that.
careful
That's
with
a-
that because they aren't gonna be able to bring the new ones through your unit.
so
They're gonna have to come up the side of the building or down from the roof or have a crane,
Well, the sliders,
lift.
the sliders
Sliders,
installation can go through your condo.
They come in.
I don't think they'll fit in the elevator.
That they're in-
They have done it.
They've
They've
Yeah,
done
they've done it before.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
I think part of the problem is I ordered them and like they're supposed to be here before the work starts, but what happens if they show up a week later,
ooh,
The thing we're trying
Well-
to
I really don't
ensure
wanna
is
be
that
told
we
I
do
can't
not
put them in.
impact the overall schedule of the restoration project because of one homeowner.
Right, I understand that, but I don't know how it would impact it, because they said the same thing, they can bring it right through the condo.
Well, we need to work with each owner, if
Right.
that's the case, if yours are delayed a month or whatever and they're here. But we want to encourage people to make a decision,
Right, yeah,
and you have,
Right,
so,
exactly.
that'll have to be worked out with, your
Right.
contractor and our
Okay.
general
Now,
contractor.
one other question, you said make the shutters inoperable to do the work, but that's the middle of hurricane season.
well, fall might not be, could be.
Like we had
Could
4
be.
hurricanes in 1 year.
Oh, for sure. No, it's, well, when I take the storm bars out on somebody that's gonna have a shutter, what good is a shutter if it blows out?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, it
It
is what it is.
It is.
It is a great question. What happens? So somebody would need to come in before restoration starts, before, if they're starting to stage. Once they start on a stack, they're gonna pin the doors and they're gonna take the railings off. You're no longer gonna have access to that balcony. So whatever you do at that point, you have to do from the swing stage. Everything has to come up. So that's why I recommend going, making them inoperable, because if something happens where your shutters are down and they don't work, somebody's gonna have to go up in the swing stage and get on that deck and harness off ropes, and it's time consuming and expensive.
Have
And
have
start
you
for
ever
me.
worked on a project where, you do a stack at a time. So do that stack, but you don't have to do you recommended doing the whole building.
I can tell you from experience on the way it happens. They're gonna start on maybe one stack or two stacks, and they're gonna go and get all the railings off, and they're gonna get, after a while, so many guys on here, they're gonna push the stacks down, and before you know it, the whole building's under restoration at some point. It's a natural, they say, well, we're gonna do the old one stack, but they get here and it's the old two stacks, and they're gonna move, and there's different stages of things they do and processes that they need to grind off the floor, and they want to get those grinders on the next stack and the next stack. It moves quite quickly. So, I mean, I'll work if you want us to do one stack, and then, call us a week or two later and do another stack. But I doubt highly, I've never seen it, and I don't know this company, so I can't speak of how they're going to do it. But generally, we come in and do the whole building, and they're going to be right behind us within a month, and they're going to have all the railings down, and they move that swing stage on the roof pretty quickly, and they move around. And to what you guys want is to like step back and go, I want them to work as fast as possible. So if you keep inhibiting them, it could run longer than you want. So, I mean, that's a double-edged sword there. How fast you want them to go, how quick do you want them to do it, and how much inconvenience you want.
So I was just doing some tabulations around non-compliance of what happens. So the window contractor has said if we hit a certain volume, they will apply a discount.
Mhm.
Does that apply
Absolutely.
to shutters as well?
Yes, it can. Yeah, absolutely. We can do that.
Is there a threshold? We know the threshold for windows. Do you have a threshold?
So I start at the 5-unit mark and move up, 5 people in a building buy shutters, then I usually start the discount there.
Josh, the way you guys are going about this with the window pricing and that kind of stuff, for instance, my end unit, none of my shutters are compliant. I think I'd like to go with high impact glass, replace the windows because they leak some. You're gonna have prices on removing shutters to be salvaged and stuff like that, plus the price of the windows, all the other stuff.
Steve, excuse me, Steve will give us a price on a shutter that has to be removed. And then probably a separate price if it's compliant and can go back up. Because I'm kind of thinking that you're thinking about, so, but if you're not going to install new shutters, your price would only be to take down the shutter. And then the general contractor is the pricing on the windows. So it really would be the two contractors. And on the shutters, I think the way we talked about it was that because that's your individual property, Steve and you would contract for that work. On the windows, because it's if you're going with our general contractor, it would be a contract technically between you and our general contractor, but the payment would have to run through the association. So when ordering windows, I'm a little off track, but I want to say it so people aren't surprised before we get the pricing. When the contractor orders windows, we need to provide him a 50% deposit. So that would be put on your account with Century. It would be due like within, 5 or 10 days, something like that. And then that money would, like I said, flow through us to the contractor. And then when your unit is finished or whatever along the way, it might be the next 50% when the window's here. So I can't
think it
speak
was
to that yet.
50% on installation.
When it was installed, okay.
That's what.
And then one more question for you. If that's the case, you said that the end windows, like the south side here, the way they're impacted different from the wind, that they're not as prone to leakage, is that what?
Yeah, in my experience, the northeast side of the building, it takes the brunt,
Okay,
takes the hit. The south less.
okay.
You have less wind coming from the south. Normally, you have
Except for
nor'easters. Well, you do, you have exceptions, there's no doubt. I mean, you have
But I
storms
think
coming
our-
from the
I
west.
think that the engineers already spec'd all the windows, whether they're south or north. I think they're spec'd the same for our building.
They would be, yeah.
For the wind and load impact,
Yes,
the requirements,
Pressure.
yeah.
yes, they would be.
So in that case, I wouldn't be faced with leaking windows after putting new impact windows in on the
I
side.
don't think anybody's gonna guarantee that.
Yeah.
You should not, they should not leak.
Theoretically.
Yeah,
But
Right.
to get a little more detail though, the work that will be required after the shutter is taken down and another one is not put back in, all that stucco work and everything will be within the contract.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Just to make sure there's not another cost on that
Yes.
part.
But I will say that his crew does a beautiful cleanup job.
Well, thanks, Nancy.
And if anybody wants to see that, they can come look at mine right now because I'm waiting for the new ones. But you have to, if you look closely, you can see where the old ones were, but they did a great job of cleaning up.
So it's very important when you take a shutter down to extract. Inevitably, there's going to be fasteners that break off in the wall. And it is very important to remove those fasteners because they will rot inside the wall and create a rust spot and degrade the building at that spot, even more. So we do all the fasteners come out and we fill the holes and
Now,
paint it.
one other question based on what you were saying before. If I get new sliders on the back and they're high impact, they still have a lot of potential for leakage because of the.
Yeah, I've seen it many, 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 many times.
My sliders leaked a little bit. I put in the shutters. I don't have leakage. since
Yeah, well,
then.
I got shutters now and I don't have leaks coming in through there. but
Right,
They're non-compliant shutters too.
right. Yeah, no, it's a big decision, and it's all up to the unit owner as far as, everybody's in a different position monetarily, but you do want to protect the inside of your unit as much as you can, right? And if your doors are bad, then, it just makes sense to get new doors. If you do both, you don't need impact doors. Well, did they mention non-impact? If you have shutters with code compliant shutters?
We're
They
not,
did it.
we're not
It's-
pricing the non.
It's mentioned, but we did not price
Okay.
non-impact.
All right, so regardless whether you have shutters or not, you're gonna put impact doors in.
We don't have shutters in this unit. That's the one that the association is contracting with the general contractor for right now.
Right,
So these have to be impact.
right, but I'm saying if a unit owner has shutters and they want doors, they're gonna have to put impact doors in.
I can't say that they're gonna have to, but if they don't put in impact shutters at the same time, it's that,
Well, what I'm saying is you have people here that have code compliant shutters and they might want to replace their doors. Do they have the option to go non-impact?
I believe we can talk with
We
the
can,
contractor about
yeah, we
that.
can explore that. I
I
don't
mean,
think
that-
anyone's, we had an owner.
They
that
can
asked
price
that,
them both.
yes.
Right,
Yeah.
that would save money
What's
because
the
you'd be
significance?
redundant.
How much price are you looking at? Just a variance.
On doors, that would be from it's quite, impact doors are quite expensive versus non-impact. But if you already have or want to contract shutters,
Double price?
They're double the price.
yeah, they're expensive.
Experience.
I have questions regarding windows. Are we gonna have another information session about windows in
Yes.
particular before we go off on that tangent?
Well, we're waiting for the contractor to get us pricing per unit so that as a O1 owner, you'll know what each of those windows is gonna cost.
Right.
And when we get to a certain monetary value that's been ordered, then there is a discount. They will be giving a discount. And we're very close to that figure with just this room alone. So any owners that do order windows through our contractor, you should be getting a discount.
But the question of impact or non-impact, okay, needs to be discussed more fully.
Yes,
on-
Yeah, we did not explore that with the general contractor yet.
And I think we need to be really careful to make sure that we have a process whereby somebody can put in non-impact windows and yet not have shutters?
Yeah. we have-
Well, I don't think they can. I don't think that meets the code for the beach, but that does all need to be discussed.
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to do,
One or the other, right?
well, you can put new windows in, non-impact, but you have to do
Then
shutters.
you have to do
We'll
shutters.
get it from the town.
Well, the permit needs to be pulled at the same time. That way that,
And
I've seen people get away with putting windows in on houses. So it's non-commercial. And the window company not telling them, and they're not informed enough to ask the right question. And then they get to the inspection part of it. The inspector comes out there and goes, well, you didn't pull impact glass. And then I've seen window companies go, well, that's on you. And they can't final the permit. So now they're calling me up and go, what can you do for me to get me shutters on my window? And it's bad news. So, I've seen that happen more than once. I mean, dozens of times where I'll get a call because the window company doesn't inform the customer of the right information. And that's bad. That's bad news. But generally, yeah, in a condo like this, you got to your point, if somebody's gonna put in non-impact windows, you want to do both and make sure they are doing that.
And we're working real hard to gather all the information.
It's a lot.
because The decision point is gonna happen pretty quickly because in order for the contractor to order the windows, because of the long lead time, it's gotta, it has to happen, at the start of the project, so.
And I tell you something, I'm
Oh, I'm
sorry.
sorry. Can you talk about timing? Because when I ordered my shutters, a few years ago or whatever, I was on a list for 8 or 9 months before I got them. What's the lead time now? I mean, with our project coming in the fall, if we're any more than 4 or 5 months, it's going to be a little bit problematic.
So this is pretty much the height of our season. We're about 12 weeks out from contract to installation right now. So what is this, May? It will get a little bit busier in June. Once we start getting into June, then our lead time might crawl to 14, 16 weeks. If we get a storm this summer, we go from 20 calls a week wanting new shutters to 400 to 500. You can't possibly hire enough people. People get upset. You can only take and return so many phone calls a day. That's where that gets to
And
be.
granted, I was one of those that ordered after a hurricane.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's human nature. I've done the same
we
thing.
got a question from Liz. But if it's on that subject, go ahead.
It is.
Okay.
So, knowing we know our timeline with our contractor
Mhm.
estimate on how long it's going to take. So, and coordinating our windows as owners contracting separately with you is how I understand it. So would you follow the work based on a stack? If owners decide they want new shutters, I'm just trying to think about how do we coordinate to make sure we're not putting new shutters in, having them pulled out and to do the balcony work.
So I will tell you that it's unusual for the board not to contract with a certain company, shutter company, because it gets messy when you have 2 or 3 or 4 shutter companies in the building, and Sue over there has this guy that won't get out there on time, and John has this guy that won't get out there on time. So by hiring one company to go through, you make one phone call, you're usually going to get Doug in our company, and we have the only full-time 4-man service company around. I mean, we pride ourselves in, even if they're not our shutters, working on those. So it'll be more difficult if you don't contract, and there's ways that other buildings have, this unit costs this much, and the unit owner has to pay the board pays the shutter company. That's more the norm than the other way. So, I mean, if you're leaving it up to everybody individual, then you might have, that kind of hard coordination between, everybody using different companies.
Well, but the like we'll call decommissioning, taking the
Oh.
post up, I think is
I
what
see.
Steve's referring to
Yeah.
right now, that part of it.
Yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, decommissioning, taking the storm bars out, you know, and then coming back and putting everything back to the way it was.
Yeah.
But if in the meantime, somebody decides, I don't want that old shutter put up, I want a new one, then that's where the owner would coordinate with Steve.
Right, right. And you could do it that way too. And that's normally, you stay out of the new, but you coordinate everybody that has, you know, the storm bars and the decommissioning. And so we videotape every shutter. If we're coming in here, every shutter gets videotaped because every shutter's in a different condition. So it might work today, didn't tomorrow, you know, there's things that happen. So video just records and stops any bad blood from boiling up, and, you know, it's there, it's on tape. And, you know, so we'll come in, videotape everything, how they work and what the condition is. Decommission, take the storm bars out, however you guys wanted me to proceed, what your decision is, whether you want to not decommission them or decommission them, that's up to you guys.
I'm a contractor.
Yeah, so
yeah,
that needs to be talked
we have that
about is, yeah,
discussion.
yeah,
Yeah,
So
so
that's what we have.
And when
Yeah.
we're closer, we'll probably have a joint meeting of if we're hiring you or a different shutter company, that, you know, all the parties get to talk to each other.
Sure.
And know what's going on.
Right.
Liz, did you still have?
Did I
Yeah, I
answer?
had more questions, which was back to the window question.
Did I answer your
Can
question?
we like pick and choose, like some of my windows are impact windows, but some of them aren't? Do we have to do all the windows, or can we be like, we need these windows replaced?
I think you'll be able to pick and choose what windows you want replaced.
Okay.
And, you know, we will ask them for pricing on non-impact windows.
Okay.
But then again, you know, we
Well, I'm gonna
have
do the
to
impacts,
be,
I just have like
but we hit
a
then, you
section
know,
that's
we
not.
have to have something impact, one or the other, you know, so,
Yeah.
We have another hand on the computer.
okay. Who's that?
Steven Senior.
Steve, senior? Open mic for you.
They can unmute.
You need to unmute if you're trying to talk
There
to
you
us. Oh,
Can you hear me?
yes, we
We
can
can.
now.
Okay. Once those shutters are installed, how often do you have to grease them? Come in and service them?
So the new shutters, you don't have to do anything, but it's recommended that you run them. There's no greasing of the motor. They're all sealed. The tracks are, you can clean those out if you want, not necessarily affect the warranty at all. So it's recommended that, you know, just like your glass outside, you take some soap and water and you clean them on a regular basis. Does it hurt the warranty? No. So
Okay.
they're a lot of the issues with the older shutters have gone away, and you should get 20, 30 years out of a shutter now where you weren't getting that before.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have anybody that's just phoned in that would like to ask a question? Because we can't see a hand raised on the computer. Nope. Anybody else in the room? Hopefully next week we'll have pricing on windows. We'll get that out to the community as soon as possible. Have a question and answer session like this with the window company or it's a subcontractor of our general contractor. Again, if you want to hire someone else on your own, you can do that, but it has to be within this window, this time frame of, you know, before work really starts here. And I know with ordering windows, there's a long lead time. So I think we're kind of past that window of opportunity.
So I just want to say one thing here with ordering windows. Because I work with builders and we put shutters and we integrate them into the homes. And I'm just going off of what I hear, you know, lead times often 6 months turns into 10. So I'm just putting that out there. Hopefully we're getting better and not worse, but it is not, you know, it's a problem with a lot of things.
Anything else you want to impart to us?
I
Did we miss?
don't know if I missed anything, but
Yeah.
anybody have any questions?
I'd like to thank you guys. That's great.
Oh, you're
Really
welcome.
appreciate you coming out.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you for
Thanks for
inviting
having
me.
us, yeah.
I appreciate that, that you guys invited us out here to give you hopefully good information to make good decisions, and that's what life's about, right? So,
And I know a number of owners have used your company, you know, and have
Yeah.
spoken highly
Well,
of
good.
your process and your service.
All we can do is strive to keep that reputation up. You know, so we'll do what we can
You
to
guys
do
do a
that.
good job.
Well, thank you so
All
much
right.
again.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your time.
You're welcome.